The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, Law and Swan with you. I hope you like the new backdrop. I hope you like the new lighting. I still got some things I want to tweak, but we are excited to have you here. So I was thinking, and I know I said we're going to get to some of the games coming up this weekend, but before we do that, you know, I talked yesterday about Brock Heward. By the way, did you like the graphic we put out on that one? That's actually Brock Heward's face, by the way, with the clown hair and everything on him. I mean, you know, for me, I get it in this business. Maybe you want to embellish a little bit. Maybe you want to be a little bodacious. You want to press the envelope or whatever you want to call it. You be a little larger than life with your comments. But again, maybe he walked it back at some point. But you know, his comments about Clemson that I heard on our way, or at least on my way here, and part of the reason I don't listen to a ton of radio is because I like to form my own opinions. But my goodness, I just happen to have it on. I do listen to some Howard Stern, and that doesn't really help me form any opinions here. But you know, when I'm riding home yesterday and I just tuned it in, and that Clemson in their game against Georgia, or I think the exact phrase was Dabo Swinney's team was humiliated by Georgia. And he never walked it back or laughed or said that's in jest. I think some of the national media members have almost come to the conclusion or the realization that fans can be just so off the wall that they're just going to run with some of this stuff in their headlines and the titles. And I saw it a couple of times over on ESPN today, or really over the past couple of days. First off, one of them was how it was put together about Clemson's standings in the polls. And again, like we said here on the program yesterday, Clemson was 2 in one poll previously. They were 3 in the other poll, and they dropped back only to 6th. But, and this is not air quotes, top headlines on ESPN.com says Georgia jumps to number 2. Jumps, a great word, right? Suitable, in my opinion. Georgia jumps to number 2. Clemson tumbles to 6th.
You fellas been doing a bit of boozing, have you? Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough medicine?
Am I missing something? Tumbles? Like, I almost feel like it's just a play on words to agitate Clemson Tiger fans. Going from 2 to 6 is not tumbling, especially when one of the teams that went past you was the team that beat you. And then falling from 3 to 6 is not tumbling. You hardly moved at all. So again, I take it all with a grain of salt and kind of laugh it up and enjoy it, because that's what you got to do. I mean, there's a long football season remaining. Just enjoy it. But I think sometimes these headlines are really meant to just kind of pull you in and get your goat, so to speak. Clemson tumbles. You know who tumbled? North Carolina. That's a tumble. I don't know what a slinky does, but that's all Clemson did. They, like a bad slinky, they just went down one little rung. Doesn't even feel like they went very far. Also today, the headline over on ESPN's website about Clemson, I guess a couple of ways they wrote this, but when you get into the article by Mark Schlabach, it says Clemson is done, ! Texas will win the Big 12. we'll bring some reality to your week 1 conclusions. The reality about Clemson is there's still plenty left in front of them. But according to Mark Schlabach, the ACC's playoff hopes are dead. My colleague Andrea Adelson and I discussed a doomsday scenario for the ACC last week. Clemson loses to Georgia. North Carolina falls to Virginia Tech, and Alabama and Ole Miss hammer Miami and Louisville, respectively. He says, unfortunately for the conference, all of those things happened on opening weekend, and it was actually worse. Georgia Tech fell to Northern Illinois, which didn't win a game in 2020. Duke lost to Charlotte, which had never beaten a Power 5 opponent. And they said, when does basketball practice start? Now, this is the other thing that kind of frustrates me on this again. As bad as the Tigers looked, it's silly to say that Dabo Swinney's dynasty is over. But the way Georgia's defense manhandled Clemson's offensive line, you cannot have one without the other. Like, you cannot say that Georgia was great and Clemson was terrible. It was the same game. It was the same game. Those two teams are two of the best teams in the country. You could not walk out of there with a tie. Somebody had to lose. If you say as bad as the Tigers looked, then you should just as easily be able to say as bad as the Dogs looked. One team did not look great in that venue, and the other looked bad. That's not what happened in Charlotte. You know what that looks like? 44-16 in the national championship game against the mighty Alabama Crimson Tide. Like, that is one team looking great and one team looking bad. And that team that looked bad that day was a great team. This was two great teams. But the narrative is going to continue to exist. And anybody that perpetuates it's only perpetuating it because they're cowards and they're scared of Clemson, to be honest with you. They don't want to see Clemson have a shot at getting into the college football playoff. Believe that. Stay with us.
Our iconic iHeartRadio